Hey everybody, Good Mayor here, and we're in session 4 of A Touch of Emotional Liberation. So I want to let you come and join me for a short discussion and a little practice today. In this series, I'm giving you some topics from my book, Emotional Liberation, Life Beyond Triggers and Trauma. And you can go to emotional-liberation.com to get some more, get the book or the course or some more information. So we've been looking at different aspects of how we get triggered, what we can do about it, and the connection to what upsets us today. There's a very direct connection to the things that might not upset somebody else, but that upset us when we get triggered, and then we have these patterns of emotional reaction. Well, there's a very direct connection to the past, to things that have been very upsetting to us in the past, and we can call those things trauma. So I'm taking an approach that trauma is something that's touched all of us. So what is trauma then? It's an adverse experience. So one definition of trauma is, something that overwhelms us, where the stress of it, the intensity of it is more than we can handle, that we can't manage the emotions of an upsetting experience. So if you think about that, that part of my approach is that emotions are there to help heal us from trauma and from things that upset us now. So this definition that trauma is something where we can't handle the emotions that come up is very relevant to the work we're doing here. So I find it very useful as an important step to recognize how trauma may have affected us. We may tend to think of trauma as something very super tragic that hasn't touched us. But if you look at the definition of something that's just so overwhelming that it leaves a lasting impression in our nervous system and in our behavior, then it's something that's really touched all of us. So a few quick definitions of types of trauma. And the purpose of this is to compassionately recognize things that have happened to you that you might have brushed aside. Oh, that shouldn't, I should get over it. That shouldn't have been so bad. I shouldn't complain. And so we can just recognize, no, that was pretty intense and that really did leave a mark on me. So there's acute trauma, and that's one event that happens super intensely. A car wreck, a natural disaster, something that was just, overwhelming in a one-time thing. Obviously, if you were abused physically in a very intense way. But then there's repetitive trauma. There's things that maybe weren't so bad, but they happened over and over again. So if you were, let's say, verbally or physically accosted or harmed, maybe not so heavily, but it happened repetitively. Even if somebody's demeaning you repetitively, then it accumulates. So I'm giving only some very brief examples, but I hope you can start to identify things that may have happened to you. The next one is called complex trauma, and that's something that's both intense, repetitive, and probably happened early on. And this goes into the next type, which is developmental trauma, which is things that happen when you're young and your brain and your body are still in their very formative years. And that's understandable because when we're small and the world is big and we're fragile. We're dependent on the kindness of others. And if that kindness isn't there, it really scrambles our nervous system, our brain, and our understanding of ourselves and life in general. You know, is life going to be this hard forever? Vicarious trauma may be relative to some of you, where you're very sensitive and seeing something happen to others. That could be on the news, or if you were as a child, your parents fought, and maybe your father perhaps was very rageful or cruel or abusive, physically or verbally, to your mother. It didn't happen to you directly, but seeing it happen was just as intense. And one final form we can look at is called historical, intergenerational, cultural trauma. So if you're a minoritized group that is culturally demeaned or treated poorly by society, if you live in a time, being Jewish during the Holocaust, being Black in America, being a woman in anywhere, but in a men's industry or field, these would be examples of that. So if you look at all those things, like who has escaped trauma? We've all felt these things. So let's talk now about the effects. So these are events that then they may be finished, but the effect on you continues, possibly for the rest of your life. And we're here talking about it so it doesn't affect you for the rest of your life. And that topic, of course, is recovery. And next week we'll look at resilience and recovery more in depth, because there's a lot known about how to recover and what gives us resilience. That's next class. So the effects on us can be physical, emotional, mental, and cognitive, behavioral, very individual. So if you look at things that you may consider normal for you, an eating disorder would be one, a state of confusion or frequent anxiety or depression, self-harm, various kinds of self-harm, low self-esteem, quite a few things that you might wonder, like, what's wrong with me? Why do I have this? Addictions. They might not be defects. They may be effects of trauma. And therefore, that first can help relieve a little guilt or self-blame, where we think, wow, what's wrong with me? This shouldn't be happening. Well, it could be very much a direct effect of something that's happened earlier in your life. So first, recognizing something that happened, recognizing the effects now. This is part of our healing. So I'd like to go now into practice that could give us the strength to rebuild ourselves, but also the strength to face the reality, perhaps, of our condition and where it came from. So sometimes just looking at that is hard enough. So we can do a little breathing exercise, a little emboldening to the nervous system and our mental framework that'll help us with that. So if you're game, let's start. All right. So we're going to do a simple practice. The arms are at shoulder level, so parallel to the ground. Right hand above the left at about 4-inch distance, both palms facing down, right? So this is a very, it'll get hard in a few minutes maybe, but very powerful posture. So I hope it feels good to begin with. So sit calmly where you can be quiet. And we're going to breathe deeply in through kissy lips, right? Puckered lips. As full as you can. So very deep, full breath. And then more tranquilly out through the nose. Like that. Okay? We're going to go 11 minutes. So let's begin. Like you're kissing the breath into you, and yes, hungrily taking it in powerfully, like really fill your lungs to capacity, and then let the exhale through the nose be tranquil. Close your eyes, join me. Sip it in, drink it in, fill yourself, and out. Go at your own pace to your own capacity. Do you feel the posture and the breath empowering you? Well, but you're doing it, so you're empowering yourself. I want you to pump yourself up, expand not just your lungs, but your sense of yourself, like reclaiming, regaining the positive power of your own awareness. Yeah, okay, so keep going. Oh, it's beautiful. The breath of life, life itself. So sometimes trauma can have us really in such a dark place that we really lose connection with the joy and the beauty of life. Now, I'm not rushing you to get there, but I want you to arrive on your own to that true state, not an artificial, happy thinking, but empowerment, where you begin to feel stronger than your circumstances, stronger than your memories, stronger than your history, and really stronger than those people and situations that themselves were troubled enough to cause you harm. Right? Why does anyone do harm to anyone? They've been harmed and they're troubled themselves. So, but we're not doing forgiveness here. We're doing just realization. So, if I may, you're 3.5 minutes into this out of 11, and I hope you're feeling enough clarity and strength to begin to, yes, impose on your practice, impose on your peaceful meditation. Bring up the darkness now. Bring up so you can see without harm, without re-triggering. Can you view, like a movie, the things that have happened to you that bothered you? Just maybe there's a bunch of it, but maybe you want to focus on one situation. Maybe it went long time. Somebody shared being tortured in the 8th grade all year long. Kids are cruel, and it's sometimes, you're not the most popular one, or maybe, you did the harm. So are you willing now to, while you're feeling very powerful and breathing, even though your arms might start to bug you a little bit, breathe enough so that you're overcoming that. And in that cue from your body, you're overcoming the harm that happened to you. So you're seeing it, but it's not touching you now. And this could be something, so whatever harms come to you, it's not happening right now. So if you'll remember it, see it, but neutrally, without it touching you now. You can see it and you keep a distance. You have an aura, you have an awareness that is then and this is now. That was some other younger version of yourself. And you see it. But now we're going to go a little further. And can you feel how it felt then? If you're willing, let in those feelings. If we can touch into the experience of the trauma and revitalize it, recontextualize it. So are you willing to feel some of the negative emotions you felt then? You were scared, you were alone, you were afraid, you were sad, you were angry. Can you let some of that emotion flow now so we can tap into that stuck place and let it flow? But you see, if you're still breathing and empowering yourself now, your emotional brain can connect with your cognitive brain. This is not happening now. I'm reviewing it and I'm safe now. I wasn't safe then. So if you can realize that you have survived and you have recovered, then it doesn't touch you. The trauma is healed. So if you're willing to relive it a little bit and feel it, have some of those thoughts you've had maybe since then, those feelings and thoughts have recurred. That's the connection between then, trauma then, and emotional upsets now. What about all the effects? Keep breathing. I want to coach you through this. Can you see a connection between what happened, how you felt, how you dealt with it, and then how that rolled out to effects that may be lasting to this very day? Recurring bouts of emotional stuckness, right? Can you connect behaviors where you're either over-pleasing, overdoing, workaholic, in a rush, chaotic, disorganized? These may be connected to those events in the past. I'm just giving you cues to let you see what shows up as truth for you. This is self-therapy. You know, your body knows, your consciousness knows. Keep breathing. Now, I've given you enough cues. I'm going to give you, we've got 3 minutes left here, folks. Do the work and rebuild yourself. When I know now what I didn't know then, when I can see the truth that I couldn't see then, when I can help myself that I couldn't do then, it means I've learned what I needed to learn from that trauma. And I can prevent it from happening again reasonably. So I'm okay. I'm healed. Move into that zone. And if you haven't yet learned what you needed to learn, so you can do now as an adult what you couldn't do then, let it be shown to you now. Let yourself know it now. This is the powerful possibility of trauma where you learn, grow. That's more than recovery. That's thriving. That's resilience. Last minute and a half. Keep it going. Maybe your breath is changing. deepen it and strengthen it, but perhaps you're softening also. Perhaps in this last minute, you can raise self-compassion. Loving kindness heals trauma. Give it to yourself now. Rebuild yourself based on love, kindness, self-care. Let this breath be a kiss. Rise above, people. Rise above. Free yourself from the chains and the sticky darkness of the past. Come into the light. Okay, that's 11 minutes. Here's how we finish. Hold the posture. Inhale deeply. This time hold it and lift the ribs up. Lift the ribs up from below. The diaphragm's pushing up. Strengthen your body, your arms. As tired as they may be, they're tighter than ever. Strengthen. Exhale. Through the mouth, good. Inhale again through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Hold the breath out now. Hold the breath out. And again, lift from the diaphragm up. Just a few seconds. Lift up. Empty and powerful. Now inhale through the nose. And one last time, inhale with the breath held in. Pull the neck lock, chin back. Tighten your whole body, all the locks, all the muscles, tight, strong. And release, release, release. Now, let's harvest these beautiful energies. Sit quietly, hands relaxed, breath relaxed. Enjoy. Be at peace. Elevation, expansion. Feel this. This is much more than recovery. This is rejuvenation. Right here and now, rewrite the story. Whatever's been your sad story, victim story of what happened, retell it now of how you overcame, thrived, grew, prevailed. Okay. Continuing to enjoy this space that you've created for as long as you wish. You can redo this practice 11 minutes a day until the memory of things past, the ghosts of the past, do not scare you, do not harm you. And their living elements in your life are transmuted into beauty. It's self-healing, and you can do it. All right. I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope this helps. We'll be back with the next part, looking more into the factors of resilience, and we'll keep the series going. A touch of emotional liberation, more at emotional-liberation.com, where you can get my book and my course and do a full study of this. Okay. Thanks very much.